Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I thought today we'd do something different and do a little in-car driving and give you guys kind of my experience of what it's like to drive the car and my thoughts on it. Right away, one of the things I love about this car, which I'm sure everyone knows, is the shifter. The shifter feels amazing. I've owned dozens of manual cars at this point in my life, and I can confidently say that this is probably the best shifter I've ever owned. Even when I've replaced shifters with aftermarket parts, I've never really had a shifter that felt this good. My Subarus, all my STIs, the shifters feel really good. The 6-speed transmission in the STI is great, but the shifter itself, the actual shifter feel, does not feel as good as the Hondas. As you can see, we're in individual mode. I have the R-log screen open. I'm not actually logging at the moment. I'm just using it to monitor oil temp and water temp, boost pressure, things like that. The exhaust set in R+ mode, I think it is, so this is the loudest setting I think the car comes with as far as the stock exhaust goes. One thing I really do love about this car, which I was a little worried about because I never really owned a front-wheel drive sports car before, was the torque steer. But this car literally eliminated any kind of torque steer that might be possible. This car drives straight and true. You can put your foot to the floor and it does not squirm. The car really likes to go fast. The seating position is great. As far as the seats go, these are probably the best OEM seats I've ever owned or ever really have sat in, honestly. I have noticed that the gear ratio and the gearing in this car is a little taller than, let's say, my STI. I can comfortably cruise around, I don't know, 3,800 RPM in 5th gear at around 80 miles per hour, maybe a little faster, and the car loves it. I think in my STI, when I'm at around, you know, maybe 4,000 RPM, even 38, I'm usually in 6th gear, I think, because if I'm in 5th gear at around this speed, the RPMs are pretty high in the STI, so the gears are definitely taller in this car, which I like. It makes highway cruising a lot easier. You can definitely tell too on the miles per gallon, this car does a lot better on gas than the STI does. Gonna get off here. We'll take city streets for a little bit. I've actually never driven or even been in an FK8 before, so I don't really have a frame of reference of the last generation's interior compared to this interior, but I will say I think as far as a Honda goes, this interior is about as good as it gets. I've driven in some Audis and some kind of later generation BMWs, 2016, 2018, and The interior of this car kind of reminds me of that. Definitely feels like an upgrade compared to some of the older Hondas. But like I said, I've never actually been inside an FK8 before, so I don't really have a frame of reference to compare it to, but I think most people would probably agree that the interior on this car compared to last generations is a big upgrade. It says right now I'm averaging about 21 miles per gallon, which isn't bad, honestly. I think in my STI average about 13 to 15, so this is definitely an improvement. But I think the car only holds about 12 gallons of gas, which I think if it held more gallons, you would definitely have a pretty decent range on this car. I think at a full tank, I'm at about 260 miles or something, so it's not bad. You add an extra 6 gallons to that, making an 18-gallon tank, you got some real cruising range. I think as far as a road trip car, this car would be very comfortable. It only seats 4, but you get the right 3 people to go with you. This car, I think, would be very comfortable, very fun to drive on a long trip. As you can see, I changed up the shift knob again. I'm coming from the Subaru world, so I kind of am used to just more of a round, kind of spherical shift knob. I know the Hondas kind of have a more teardrop shape, which it feels good, but I'm just a little more used to this, so I ordered another round one. And I think this is kind of the one that I'm going to stick with. I think this one feels the best. The only thing I might do is I might add a little extension just to raise it up a tiny bit, so I'm not constantly touching the actual shift boot when I'm shifting. I can kind of actually get my whole hand around it if I raise it up a little bit. One thing I love is that when you're out on city streets, it actually will tell you the miles, the speed limit on the street you're currently on. I have noticed sometimes it is wrong, but it is a cool feature that if you're not used to, and let's say you don't know the speed limit, you can just quickly glance down and it will tell you, oh, the street I'm on says that the speed limit is 35. So I know I should be going 35. One thing I might do is I might get like a Broadway mirror, one of those aftermarket rear view mirrors that kind of just clips on over the existing one. Gives you kind of a more wide angle view. This rear view mirror is a little small, and considering the hatch doesn't have the best visibility out the back, I think I might get an aftermarket mirror just to clip over and give myself a little better visibility out the rear view mirror. I'm currently in R+ for the suspension setting. It is stiff. Sometimes I will go back into the settings and switch it to comfort mode, let's say if I have my wife in the car. But I personally like to drive around with it on R+ mode. I think it gives it kind of a more almost aftermarket coilover feel. I've never actually owned a car this new and that has adaptive suspension like this, so I'm generally used to just kind of one stiffer feel, because I'll replace the OEM suspension with coilovers and that's kind of all you get. But this is nice, you can kind of go through, and there really is a big difference between comfort and Plus R mode. I think the difference between Plus R mode and Sport really isn't that noticeable, but the difference between comfort and Plus R is definitely noticeable. I do think the AO52 tires I replaced the OEM tires with really help a lot. It is definitely a stickier compound than what the car came with from the factory, but I think the OEM wheels actually look really good. I'm happy they didn't go with 20s, they went down to 19s, which made the car look a lot better. I think putting 20s on this car just looks a little ridiculous, but I do think going down to an 18 from the 19 and putting a stickier compound on definitely gives the car a little better ride. Definitely feels like I have a little bit more control of it when the tires get hot. But other than that, the car rides really good. I never understood why you have to hit the AC button twice. You have to hit it once to let you know that it's off, and then you have to hit it again to turn it on. Not a big deal, I just always wondered why that was a feature. I will say the visibility at the front of the car is very good. Nice big windshield, good visibility around the A pillar. Honestly, one of my favorite things about this car is probably the dash. I think the digital dash just gives it a really cool vibe. Makes it really fun to drive the car. I think the fact that you can customize everything pretty much. You can set both screens to how you want them to look. You can set, you know, the sound of the car. You can set almost anything in this, and it makes it just a very fun and very personal experience. And I don't think you really get that with a lot of cars. And I think Honda did a very good job of creating a car that is not only fun to drive, but also, you know, it just makes you feel a little special being in it. You know, you can customize everything. You can change the little things that as a car enthusiast are important to you. Right now I have about almost 1,200 miles on the car. I did break her in properly. I did do the first oil change at around 50 miles to get any of the lubricant that the engine builders were using to assemble the motor. Got all of that out of the car. I was able to get a spoon magnetic oil drain plug in the pan, so that while we were breaking it in, if there was any little bits of metal that were coming off, I could be able to pick it up with the magnet. I did do my second oil change at around 300 miles, and then again at around 8. I recommend personally breaking in the engine. Honestly, any new car, if you really care about it, you should probably break in the engine, doing an oil change right at the beginning to get any of the lubricant or any of the chemicals or materials that they used assembling the engine. Then probably I would say doing another oil change at around 300 miles, and then again at around 800 to 1,000 miles would probably be, I'd say, your last break-in oil change. And then after that you can kind of go to your normal 3,000 miles and your motor should be properly broken in. I don't know what Honda does from the factory or how they assemble the engine, so I'm not really sure. So I would just say, to be safe, if you don't really know, just break in the engine properly. You don't need to give it the beans right out of the lot from the dealership. It really doesn't take long to put 1,000 miles on a car, and especially if you're breaking the car in properly, it gives you a little peace of mind knowing that, you know, you did everything you could as a car enthusiast, as a responsible car owner, to break in the motor, and hopefully everything should be good. Probably the next in-car video we do, I'll probably do it at night sometime when there's less people out and we can really show you guys what the car's capable of. But I just wanted to do a quick little in-car video just to kind of give you my impressions of how the car feels. I think from the factory, this is the best driving car I've ever owned. And I've owned all-wheel drive cars, I've owned a bunch of rear-wheel drive cars. This is my first front-wheel drive car, and I can confidently say this is the best car I've ever owned from the factory. Are there things that, you know, I don't like about it, or things that I want to change? Sure, just like any other car, but from the factory, this car is amazing. Red line right here. I actually live right down the street from a police station, which has its benefits, but also means there's a ton of police activity usually in my neighborhood, so can't really be speeding too much when I get close to my house, but alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please leave a comment and give the video a like, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.